Okay, and deregulation was not part of the conversation, correct?
Sorry,
To Mr. Bonini's point, he's asking council to look and consider deregulating the taxi industry this evening. I guess from, we have a specific amount of requirements that we ask our taxi industry, and I won't go through the litany because there's a ton of things that they need to provide to us. And I'm not seeing that if someone's driving an Uber vehicle, have they had a criminal record check? Do they have the proper insurance to carry a passenger? Do they have the, list of all the chauffeurs? Do they have a broker license? Do they have a business license? All of those things, if we're going to be competitive and allow these guys to compete, and we're putting a set of criteria on them that is not even, I don't even know how we would enforce it, to be honest with you. If it's someone's personal vehicle, how would an officer even determine whether they're an Uber driver? I don't know how that all comes together, but I think the sooner we address this, the better. And obviously, it's impacting our businesses here in the community. So I guess I'd be open to comments from council, what you're seeing out there, what you've heard. Alderman Hunter, please.
Well, so the getting rid of the taxi bylaw is a new one to me. Had some conversations with drivers, not only here, but in Calgary, talking about Uber. Asked one of the fellows that works in the City of Calgary's taxi side to come tonight and kind of listen and hear what's going on. What I was asked today is that if the city would consider reducing the taxi rates. And so for those of us that don't know or aren't completely aware of how this bylaw impacts drivers, my understanding right now is Uber can come into Airdrie and do pretty much give someone a ride for whatever they feel like, and it works on, they can go as little as $1 up to, if there's a peak demand time, they can raise that through the roof and sort of charge at will. I guess the biggest challenge that I have with all of it is we've got people in the business community that live in this community that are doing things the right way, paying taxes and those types of things. And so I guess what I would like to see is something, and Mark had alluded to it, that we had talked about, or that they had talked with the industry, and the industry wasn't very supportive of doing anything at that time. But it seems to me, and I don't know, maybe we could get a show of hands of how many other drivers are here in the industry. Looks like, so it seems to me that there's a whole bunch more people that are here for obvious reasons. This is a very concerning thing for the industry, and that, I know that we're waiting for information to come back, but I would really like to see perhaps staff. George Dunn is here, who's an expert with the City of Calgary, works as a consultant. He's had conversations and is aware of that, is to maybe get everybody together and kind of get a sense of what is it, because we heard that we want to get rid of the bylaw. We've heard from others that we want to reduce the taxi fares. I'm imagining there's a whole suite of things that we could do to support the industry, one of which would be getting together very quickly, in my mind, in the next week to say, what is the common goal of the industry? What can you do right now? And what can we do going forward? Because there are a lot of things. My biggest concern is that we don't wait for other jurisdictions to tell us what we should be doing in our business community, in our city. This is happening in our city, and we should be proactive and doing those things. And if it's just talking to folks that have a little bit of expertise in Calgary, to the drivers here, and of course Mark and licensing staff, then I'd certainly be supportive of that, and I'd be happy to help facilitate whatever that might look like.
Okay, so are you looking for a specific motion, or what? Because you made it quite a...
Well, so again,
what are you looking for?
Originally, when this came to me in doing some digging today and talking with Mr. Schultz and Mr. Locking, the thought was that folks were going to come and ask to reduce taxi rates. Don't know if, so you're shaking your head no. I'm sure there's some people that might think that's an idea. There's some other people shaking their heads no. So that's all.
Sorry, just a sec. Let's keep the commentary amongst council, please. Let's get this over as it relates to what you're talking about specifically. We're not, sorry, please no yelling out during a meeting. Let's keep this to council. So what are you looking for, Alderman Hunter, and let's proceed.
So to have a meeting in a timely fashion, I would say in the next week with another meeting with the stakeholders, and perhaps we can include George Dunn, who's here. He came at my invitation tonight to kind of listen and maybe give us a sense of what Calgary's doing and how we can maybe move forward on this, because obviously there's some disagreement as to what should be done, but I don't think there's any disagreement on that something should be done and we should be doing it.
Okay, so with that in mind, that's kind of where, that's what I heard Mark saying that his staff were going to be doing. So Sharon, we don't need to make a motion if Mark and Paul can move forward without council's direction on an administration function and getting together with the industry and seeing where we sit as it is in the short term.
Your Worship, at this point, it is up to council's desire whether or not they wish to make a formal motion. Staff has indicated that is the process they're going to move forward with, so it's entirely up to council.
Okay, so I'm of the same vein of Alderman Hunter. I prefer to set the standard rather than to wait and see what other jurisdictions do. They have a much different setup than we do, much larger scale, and I think we can certainly figure something out that suits Airdrie in a reasonable fashion, a reasonable time frame. Alderman Haig, you had your light on. Did you want to comment?
Well, you just asked, Your Worship, if we had heard anything about comments about Uber. I haven't heard anything from anybody at all. I guess in terms of meeting dates, it's my understanding since this bylaw came into effect that staff has been meeting regularly with the industry, as was mentioned. And I think we have the commitment from staff that they will continue to meet and address those concerns and try to develop consensus on how we should move to address these issues.
Okay. Any other comments from council? No. Are you comfortable with that, Mr. Benini?
Your Worship, at the meeting, none of us said that we should wait and see what Uber is going to do. We know what they're going to do, and that's take market share.
Okay, so, and again, you're speaking for yourself tonight, right?
No, I'm speaking for everybody that came tonight.
The industry isn't here.
Yeah,
So
they are.
all of these are individual cab companies that are here right now?
Different cab companies are here. Different drivers are here. None of them are my drivers.
No, but the entire industry isn't here. They haven't appointed you to speak on their behalf, have they?
Well, there's different cab drivers and cab owners here of different companies that are here. There's some people that want to reduce the rates. Some people don't want to reduce the rates.
I recognize that. And from my understanding of the meeting, there was a vote with the companies that were there, and it was significantly voted against changing the rates.
Yeah.
By the majority of companies were there. So without getting into detail on that end, what we want to deal with is what you were talking about. So I just want to know from Mark's perspective, is there a plan to have a meeting with the industry to get the concerns and build something and come back with to council for some opportunities to make a decision on? Mark.
Your Worship, you have our staff's commitment that we will meet with the industry as soon as possible, again, to see if anything has changed since a week and a half, and we can address those issues.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Benini.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming forward. Anyone else who'd like to come forward and ask a question of council? Thank you, Mark. Yes, please come forward. You don't have to put your hand up. Mr. Dunn, you're always welcome here.
Thank you, Your Worship. After hearing
Sorry, Mr. Dunn, we are televised. They have the back of your head, but they can't hear you unless your microphone's on. So if you wouldn't mind, hit the red button, and whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me now? Thank you. Well, on removing the bylaw, I was part of the bylaw when it first came into the city of Calgary as a consultant to City of Airdrie and licensing the garages and the bylaw and making sure that the enforcement folks were trained in taxis. And it goes to consumer protection. That's why you have the bylaw in place, that consumer protection is one of the major things in the taxi industry, that the consumers have to be protected. And in my view, that's why you require the bylaw to be there. It goes to safety of the drivers also. So on saying that, on getting rid of the bylaw, in my opinion, it should be enforced even more, and Uber's got nothing to do with the local bylaw. Uber's going to show up in any city, any town, wherever it feels like it, as it has done in different jurisdictions. And no matter what enforcement is in place, Uber's still going to do it. They run great vehicles, they have good drivers. The competition is going to be there for a small town or small city like Airdrie. So my view is to hold the bylaw in place, maybe tweak it if it has to be tweaked somewhere, but for consumer protection, you need that bylaw in place. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else who'd like to come forward? You don't have to put your hand up. You just come forward, sir. Welcome. Just a middle button. It should go red. There you go.
Thank you for your time, Your Worship, and the Council. I'm also from another taxi company, and when the bylaw was passed, I was part of that one. I do highly recommend that the laws that are made for the certain reason. And we do go in favor of having to have a bylaw. We've been running our taxi since the bylaw was passed, and I cannot claim that it hurt our company. We have progress within that bylaw. We did set the standard, and we did move forward, and we did pretty good job creating our company and making it bigger. We brought every service possible to make it more convenient for the city of Airdrie. However, with the last 5 year of a data that we have, that shows that the consumer that are using the service in this city is less than 0.5% of the population, versus compared to city of Calgary, which is anywhere between 2.5% to 3.5% of their population. And I feel that by enhancing the companies, bringing their proper services and doing better job, we can do it. But at the same time, having to have a higher prices that would deter the people to use the service often. Currently, our rate is $1.81 per kilometer compared to Calgary, which is $1.66 per kilometer. And Uber is currently charging $1 kilometer. Even though they spike their rate on the peak time, but their claim is that they are below than taxi. And I have compared the city of Airdrie with another city in Ontario that I have the information. They're half the population of city of Airdrie and doing more volume than Airdrie. Not close to any major airport either. So what I see is that by bringing a better pricing to the consumer would bring more consumers out to use the service, and it will make it more friendlier. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
And if you could give us your name, please, sir.
Sorry, my name is Tamor, and I'm from Alliance Cab and Yellow Cab in Airdrie.
Excellent. Thank you, Tamor.
Thank you.
Again, your comments, I know Mark was listening intently and taking notes. Correct, Mark? That's right. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up there. That's fantastic. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding everybody. Anybody else who'd like to come forward? You sure? We're friendly. Okay. Well, moving on. We are into the public hearing portion of our evening this evening, and 8.1. And so for those of you who haven't been part of a public hearing before, we will open the public hearing after presentation are made by our administration. We will ask 3 times if there is anyone in favor of speaking for the proposal, and ask 3 times if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the proposal. And from there, we'll close the public hearing and we'll turn it back over to administration. So with this, I would like to welcome Tracy Corbett, and whenever you're, sorry, is who's going to be providing the information. Is Stephen going to be providing the information? That's what I thought. So Stephen, if the boss sits up there, I think you need to move too, so that I know who to introduce. Now I know. Stephen, welcome. And whenever you two are ready, we're looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. The application before you this evening is the Lanark Neighbourhood Structure Plan and the associated land use amendments. So before Stephen presents his report and recommendations, I just wanted to outline a few aspects of this NSP that we thought were worth noting, and particularly as it relates to the Airdrie City Plan. We've reviewed a number of NSPs over the years, and some of them will actually reference the city plan. This one certainly executes it quite well. And I also thought it worth noting, because we did the development tour, and there were a number of things that I mentioned as we were going through that, of some good examples, some not so good examples. So just wanted to highlight some things in here that you will see actually coming forward. One of them is that the plan actually executes the density strategy that I've referenced a number of times, and it's in the Airdrie City Plan. What you won't see in this plan is isolated blocks of high-density residential. What you will see is much more corridor-related development so that the density is very well integrated into the community. The other thing you'll see in terms of the parks and open space, when we talk about wanting to have well-connected communities, this is one that was very thoughtful in how they did their open space strategy, as well as parks and pathways, and the pathways that actually connect not only through the neighborhood, but to areas outside of it. And so that's one thing that we're really promoting. And in terms of housing mix, it certainly responded well to the policy that we did set, where we put limits on the amount of small lot, narrow lot. This is one that actually responded well to that. So I just wanted to note that when you hear us planner types referring to different planning concepts like well-integrated housing mix, age-in-place communities, good placemaking, modified grid patterns, and wonder what on earth it is we were talking about, it's this plan. So it is one where they do density very well. It implements the policies that we've put forward. So just wanted to highlight of when you were looking at that, when we are promoting those policies, this is what you will see come forward in the NSPs. So I want to take the opportunity to thank the staff. It wasn't interdepartmental of both parks, engineering, and planning, but in particularly wanted to recognize the applicant who worked extremely hard with us to produce a plan that actually aligned well with both Airdrie 1 and with the Airdrie City Plan. So with that, I will turn it over to Stephen, who will walk you through the planning report and the recommendations. Thank you.
So thank you, Tracy, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My privilege and pleasure this evening to walk you through the Lanark Stage 1 Neighborhood Structure Plan, which is Bylaw 25-2015, and the associated land use bylaw amendments that would be in support of the Neighborhood Structure Plan. I want to begin by providing council with a little bit of context as to where the Lanark Stage 1 Neighborhood Structure Plan exists, what's being planned here. We're talking about the subject site shown on screen, which is directly south of the community of Ravenswood, and directly east of the southern portion of Kings Heights, with Rocky View County being the parcels down to the south here, and the annexation lands to the east being over in this area here. The Lanark Stage 1 Neighborhood Structure Plan is one parcel out of three that are part of the same land holdings. They are part of a larger vision of a lake community developed by a single developer. The lake would be in the center of Stage 2. Stage 1 is this parcel shown right here. In this circumstance, Ravenswood would be the area up here, and Kings Heights would be the area here. What I want to mention in this particular slide is that this would be an area that would be very well integrated. Around that community would have a homeowners association, and part of the overall vision is to have residential in the Stage 1 lands with more residential in Stage 2 that would be supported by some commercial on the northern side in part of the Stage 2 lands. How that translates into districts or zoning areas sort of as we move forward, what we see here is a design concept for the community overall. And what you're seeing in sort of the large block format is that the yellow areas represent areas of relatively low density residential, and that the orange areas represent areas of relatively medium density residential. And in this plan, most of the areas of medium density residential take the form of street-oriented townhouses. A couple things to mention about the design concept overall would include the fact that the school site has been placed in the center of the community to provide some focus in that regard. You have a modified grid system, and you have a pond in the southeast corner. Among many things, what that does is provide connections to other communities within the community and to Airdrie overall. How that translates into housing form can be shown on this screen here. What you'll probably notice right away is that there's a lot of green. And that's because there are some park areas in each of the corners, and I'll get to that certainly in more detail as we go on, but also that there are housing forms that are fairly subtle in their format. They are oriented properly. You have a large range between sort of single detached that has front drive access, single detached housing that has rear lane access, some integrated semi-detached units, and street-oriented townhouse units with a single cluster housing site in the northeast corner. I mentioned earlier that parks have been an important part of this plan, and they're identified on this screen here. What you're seeing on the picture on the left-hand side is that the asterisk represents the center of a park space that's been put into the community, and the circle, the dashed circle around it, represents a 400-meter radius. And what you'll notice from that is that every single unit within the Lanark community is within 400 meters of a park space. But what you also notice by way of the concentric circles is that many are within multiple park spaces. You have easy access to the stormwater pond, or the central school site, or a playground area, etc. Everyone is well connected. There are regional pathways between each of these areas. There are regional pathways between Lanark Lake and other communities. This is a very well integrated site. I want to spend a moment just to focus on the school site in particular. One of the things you'll notice is that there's a building envelope here that is capable of handling a K-8 school. It is a joint use site, which means that there are playfields that are used as part of the school programming on the west side, but also can be used for the municipal programming as well. In consultation with our Parks Department, the arrangement is to have a combination of a major and two minor soccer fields that can overlay against each other. This meets part of our programming needs, it meets part of Rocky View School's programming needs, and it leaves a little bit of space left over for community needs as well. And in speaking with the developer, one of the things that they have come to the table on is to help us meet a community need identified by our community planning department. One of the things that they look for is some social space for people who are adolescents in the community, people who need a space to hang out other than just the typical playground equipment that you find in a typical space, and the developer has agreed to come to the table and provide some social space within the school site as well. So you have not only good park spaces scattered throughout the community in appropriate locations, but you also have programming in each of those locations. When you look at Lanark Lake and how it fits in more globally, and just to provide for council, the blue dashed area here in the southeast corner is Lanark Lake Stage 1, this being Kings Heights and this being Ravenswood. What you'll see is a lot of regional and local pathway connections. We have kept major north-south pathway connections from Ravenswood into the community of Lanark, and also kept east-west ones from Kings Heights. They continue through to Lanark Lake Stage 2. They continue to the rest of the community by way of the 40th Avenue corridor. This is a very well-integrated community. The developer has also used a modified grid as part of its transportation structure here. One of the things that allows is for simple and well-executed transit to be used within the community, and you can see the pathway of the future transit located over here on the right-hand side of your screen. In addition, 40th Avenue can also be used as a corridor for intercity transit or other things of that nature. As desired, it has been designed as such. Next item I want to speak to is about phasing and build-out scenarios in Lanark. A lot of thought, again, has been put into what will happen when, in terms of logical extension of servicing, in terms of logical extension of roads, in terms of making sure that you have emergency access points or secondary access points at the point in which you need them under fire code. But there's also been additional thought to it as well. The picture on the right-hand side of the screen shows in light blue the 25% build-out area, which is largely these areas here, plus the storm pond, the 50% build-out area, which are sort of shown in goldenrod yellow color here, the 75%, which is in the green, and the purple, which is in the, the 100%, which is in the purple. And what that breakdown does is it has been used in conjunction with the traffic impact assessment that was done for this community. The primary conclusion of the traffic impact assessment is that you can build 100% of Kings Heights, including all the commercial and industrial. You can build 100% of Ravenswood and 75% of Lanark Lake Stage 1 and not have a situation where you would have an unacceptable level of service on all your arterial and local roads. It's only when you go past 75% that you might have that circumstance. In order to try and avoid that, we had negotiated and worked with the developer, and they came to the table to advance the development of 40th Avenue heading east towards Range Road 292, so over in this direction here. From 292, you can get access down to Highway 566, Cross Iron Drive. You can get access to Métis Trail, and you can get access to Stony Trail. So it provides a relief valve for the critical AM and PM peak. Really appreciate the efforts of the developer doing that, and that's how they correlate is that basically at phases 1, 2, and 3, once we're into phase 3, we're starting to develop that, and that advances it considerably ahead of what the level of service would typically dictate. This is a very important point for the development of this plan and for the development of Southeast Airdrie overall. Working in conjunction with that is the requested land use districts. Often we see developers request the entire quarter section or the entire neighborhood structure plan for land use districts. And certainly the developer has put a lot of thought into what districts might go where here, and you can see them sort of shadowed in here. But the actual request before council tonight is only for 27 hectares of the 64. And that is because those are the areas that are largely correlate with the 25% build out and the school site. It means that the school site can be shovel ready if Rocky View Schools has the money available, say tomorrow or whenever they have it. It also means that you have land use districts that have been provided just for the area that is related to the growth. So once you reach that 25%, the developer would start building the road, and then they would come forward with new land use districts. So it provides a good faith measure with the developer in that regard as well. So that's the overview of the plan. I would like to move a little bit into the analysis. Certainly as planning staff, like Tracy mentioned, we start with the beginning by looking at the sustainability plan. How well does the plan meet the goals, policies, and objectives, principles and objectives, of the Airdrie 1 sustainability plan? There are a number of different things to look at. A couple highlights. Airdrie sustainability plan wants to ensure that we have a mix of housing forms. As I mentioned earlier, this has single detached front drive, single detached laned, semi-detached townhouses, cluster housing. It has a variety of housing forms. They've used a modified grid, another important principle of connection within communities. The overall need for Airdrie, and it's mentioned in the Airdrie 1 sustainability plan, is to ensure that we have good connection with Airdrie overall. By providing a triggering event for the development of 40th Avenue, we ensure as a community overall a certain amount of control of our own destiny and making sure that we have connections to the larger regional network. And from the environmental perspective, one of the things that's happened here is that the storm pond, and again the developer came to the table on this, has been enlarged so that there is storage capacity available to use irrigation in some of the park spaces within the plan to ensure that we meet the release rates of the Nose Creek Watershed Master Plan. So all of those have been considered. A couple of key highlights under the sustainability plan. In terms of reviewing the municipal development plan, again, we're looking to ensure conformity, and one of the things that's noted in map 1 of the Airdrie municipal development plan is that this parcel here should be used primarily for residential purposes, and that's what's being proposed here. But the Airdrie municipal plan also wants to ensure that we have diversified park spaces and appropriate programming. That's being achieved here. Want to make sure that we have excellent pathway connections within the community and to overall Airdrie. Again, that's being achieved here through the regional pathways I mentioned earlier, and an integrated mix of housing products. Tracy indicated earlier the rule about making sure that we have no more than 35% small and narrow lots that have single detached front drive garages. This community has 32.7. It meets that target. The next level of review is to bring it down to the CASP level and ensure that there's conformity there. Council may recall earlier this year came forward with bylaw B13 2015, which amended the CASP. Among other things, it took the school site and moved it from this location here and moved it a little bit further to the east, so it would be in the center of Lanark. It moved the storm pond location from approximately this area here along the southern boundary, moved a little bit further to the southeast to be more in line with natural topography, and to give the room for the storm pond necessary to make sure that we could meet the Nose Creek objectives. Oh, thank you.
Can you use that for your pointer?
Sure. Sure. I was trying to, thank you. Okay. Apologies for the interruption. I apparently am catering to the YouTube crowd and not so much yourself, so I apologize, Council. The school site had been moved to this location here from a location that was closer to this point in time. The storm pond located here previously had been moved to this location, and of course we had to make room for the 40th Avenue corridor so that there would be transportation connection in line with the transportation master plan and in line with development of the annexation lands further to the east. This parcel here represents phase 3A. It's the next to be brought online given that Ravenswood and King sites are under construction. And this plan, in our opinion, meets a number of the objectives of the CASP, including range of housing types and lot sizes. It encourages walking and cycling through the various paths, Green Street corridors, etc. The way it breaks up 40th Avenue with a series of green streets that allow dispersion into the community from the arterial network. a central school site, and logical extensions of servicing connections. The CASP had a range of density that was appropriate for the site. This fits nicely in between there at about 7.4 units per acre. Excuse me. I won't spend too much time on the land use districts here. You've heard me talk about the correlation between the land use districts and the triggering event of 40th Avenue. You've also heard me talk a little bit about the mix of units that's happening overall, as well as within the first few phases to ensure that you have a variety of different price points that bring people into the community, a variety of different units and housing prices. Also helps people keep people in the community for their entire lives, if you want, life cycle planning. What I will mention a little bit is that there are two direct control districts being proposed tonight. Those are Direct Control 44 and Direct Control 45. Direct Control 44 is essentially a two-dwelling district that has an integration of single-attached housing. It would mirror what we would propose to bring forward to council as part of the new land use bylaw as an R2 district, where we're looking for an integrated mix of single-attached and semi-detached housing. We feel that's a very appropriate way of handling it, makes the community feel a little more integrated overall, brings a variety of housing points, not just within the community, but sometimes within the same street, and is a very good thing. Direct Control 45 is essentially a townhouse district, and it would mirror our future R2T district in the new land use bylaw. And in that circumstance, we're advocating or looking for townhouse housing forms that face onto streets, sometimes local collector roads, etc., that they would have an appropriate streetscape with them, be brought a little bit further to the front, have a good interface with them, and would bring the access to the lane, which takes away some of that circumstance where you have townhouses that have a lot of front drive garages and can feel like they have a more impactful element on the streetscape than sometimes even single attached that are very narrow do. So one of the objectives there as well. So again, from planning perspective, we see those both as very good things, very much in support of them, want to be mirrored in the new land use bylaw. In summary, to take it from the top, we believe that this very much meets the principles, objectives, and goals of Airdrie 1 Sustainability Plan. It meets the policy requirements and the land use concept of the Airdrie City Plan. It meets the policy and land use design elements of the CASP. It provides a land use districts that give us an appropriate mix. It incorporates a central school site. It represents best current planning practices. Accordingly, we took this plan to Planning Commission on September 24th, and I really want to commend Planning Commission, first of all, for arranging a dedicated meeting so we could discuss Lanark Lake specifically, and I thought it was a very good conversation at that time. It was also a very good conversation because the Planning Commission members had taken such time to review the plan, all the supporting documents, and to ask excellent questions. So a couple of questions they ask: why is the storm pond encroaching into the annexation lands? What about the size of the school site, and does Rocky View Schools support it? Would Stage 1 residents be able to use the lake in Stage 2 if it were developed? Did we receive any comments from Sharp Hill residents? How did the street connectivity index get incorporated? And what about the provision of accessory suites in Direct Control 44? So I'll respond to those briefly in turn here. The stormwater pond, as I mentioned earlier, was increased in size so that we could incorporate some best practice measures and some irrigation from the storm pond into the park spaces. The size of the school was supported by Rocky View Schools, but they're very much in support of the envelope, the size for the school, the location of the school, the cross-section where it meets. Stage 1 residents would be able to use this, the lake if it were incorporated in Stage 2. I have confirmation from the developer on that. We only received 2 comments from people who lived in Rocky View County. And we responded to both of those comments with the updated plan. They had very similar comments than we did originally, so it was part of the integrated process in getting the plan to Planning Commission and Council. The Street Connectivity Index is essentially a measure of how well connected the community is. Basically, how many connections do you have between the various nodes of your community? A minimum score that we look for is 1.4. Approximately the maximum you can ever reach is 2. This hits 1.66. It gets harder and harder to increase as you go along. This is a very good score. That's from a vehicle point of view. From a pedestrian point of view, it's 1.83. This is a very well-connected community. Using modified grid really did an excellent job here. And finally, Direct Control 44 would allow a certain degree of accessory suites, but it would only allow those in the single detached, which represent a very small portion of Direct Control 44. Certainly this would not be a community inundated with them. You need to have a fairly wide lot, and you need to make sure you have an appropriate provision of parking. So with all of that said, Municipal Planning Commission voted 8-0 in favor of it. There were no abstentions. Everyone was in support of that motion. Accordingly, there are 3 alternatives for council this evening. First alternative would be to enact the bylaws, and I've put them in the order accordingly because if you were to make the land use mapping amendments under bylaw B26, you would need to adopt bylaws B45 and B46 first because those are the direct control districts. Alternative 2 would be to table the bylaws if you needed more information. Alternative 3 would be to defeat the bylaws if you felt that they were not appropriate and did not want to support the plan. If you did that, then urban holdings and ranch and farm would retain as land use districts. Our recommendation is for alternative 1. We believe that this neighborhood plan matches the intent and the land use concepts of Airdrie 1, Airdrie City Plan, Southeast Airdrie CASP. It also represents current best practices, has a great central school, a lot of good park programming, a lot of interconnections. And really, if I was to leave council with one thought, it would be that considerable thought has been put into all aspects of community design, whether it was transportation, parks, connectivity, housing form, etc. Every single thing that we asked for, we got. And we think this is a very good plan. It has our full support. So with that, Mr. Mayor and members of council, I'm going to conclude my presentation. I welcome any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions in the short term? Alderman Chapman.
Stephen, I love this plan. It looks like a great plan, looks like a great community. Everything looks great. I just have a serious concern with traffic down there. I still can't see how that traffic is going to get to the highway without causing bottlenecks, without causing backups, especially when that collector road at the far south end is going to be the last one that's going to be done. I see traffic down there now, this many more houses. I don't know where they're going to go.
So through the mayor to address the question of Alderman Chapman, I'll start the response, and then I believe Lauren Stevens is going to speak to it in a little more detail. Certainly, that was something that we had questions about as well. And so what you do is you do a traffic impact assessment, have that prepared by a consultant, and then it's reviewed by our engineering department and our engineering consultants. And you want to verify methodology, factors, the existing background traffic, etc. And what I've told council earlier is essentially the main conclusion, that you can develop 100% of Kings Heights, 100% of Ravenswood, and 75% of Lanark before you reach a point where you don't have an acceptable level of service. Bringing on 40th Avenue to Range Road 292 does provide a relief valve. It dramatically improves the level of service that you would get in that area because it provides an alternate means. And really, it's in the best interest of these communities to try and have multiple means for people to get down to the destinations they want to go, which typically during AM peak happen to be the Calgary region. With that, I'm going to defer to Mr. Stevens.
Your Worship and members of council, just a couple of supplementary comments drawing on Stephen's response. Looking at this from a staff perspective, there are probably a couple of key transportation elements that Lanark Lake is positioned to take advantage of, and one that staff see as key is the 40th Avenue. And if council can equate the role of 8th Street on the west side of the city, we're seeing Range Road 292 is essentially replicating that with the construction of 40th Ave that Stephen has alluded to. So providing additional key intermunicipal north-south linkages in close proximity to this plan is something that we believe will mitigate a substantial portion of the traffic, provide a very tangible alternative option to the use of the other interchanges. The one other thing I would comment on as well is that the city has been in discussions with the province on widening the northbound off-ramp onto Yankee Valley Boulevard. And I think for most of the transportation challenges we hear about on affecting our interchanges, they are in the peak afternoon rush hour. And if we are successful in working with the province, and technically it's a relatively straightforward improvement to deliver a widening of the northbound off-ramp, and it's been costed, and we're hopeful to see some progress with the province. Certainly a lot less complex technically than trying to advance an interchange. With that proposed widening of the Highway 2 off-ramp, we honestly believe that, particularly in that peak evening rush hour, you will have, given that these are right turn movements, and there is a widening proposed on the off-ramp, that these, again, it's not that this development would not have any impact, but it's significantly mitigated by virtue of the fact that that evening rush hour traffic, if using the Yankee Valley Boulevard off-ramp, could be some additional capacity created in relatively short order with that. So with those two key transportation components and where this particular development is located, we see those as mitigating some of the transportation concerns that may not be quite as obvious in other parts of the city.
Thank you.
Alderman Hunter.
Yeah, through the chair, Lauren, can you maybe just speak to that? So I get that idea about the northbound widening. Where would we kind of see that in this process, and so best and worst case scenario, I mean, ideally, if we started it at the same time that this all went through, that would be a perfect world. In a not so perfect world, towards the end of phase one, do you see it kind of that type of thing? And if it didn't happen at all, what would be the impact on this development?
Through the chair, we have been advised, in terms of just basic discussions with the province, the construction feasibility, the off-ramp widening could be achieved in a single construction year. The issue currently is funding. And I think as Stephen spoke to during his presentation, the other place where we've seen Melcor put, I guess, dollars on the table is in terms of front-ending some of that key 40th Avenue infrastructure. So for instance, even the connection between, I guess on the south end of the plan, the 40th Ave going from Sharp Hill Way through to the entry point, and maybe I'll just ask Stephen to pull that up. The first stage of 40th Avenue is tentatively scheduled to be budgeted as early as 2017, so that would allow some additional east-west capacity at that particular point in time. And again, that is one that is will be addressed in a forthcoming off-site levy review. We do see that as having regional benefit and are proposing to include that in our list of projects for and starting construction as early as 2017.
Deputy Mayor Bellick.
Through the chair, thank you, Stephen. When you're saying housing types, I'm reading through this report, and you talk about single detached with both front and rear lane access, semi-detached, and townhouses, but I'm unfamiliar with the term clustered units. Could you please explain that?
Through the chair, to address the question of the Deputy Mayor, yes, I definitely can. Cluster housing could be any variety of different things. Certainly in discussions with the developer, such items have been discussed as potentially some fourplexes or some attached housing, maybe even a little bit of a townhouse cluster. The intent here is that what you do is you sacrifice a little bit of traditional sort of side and rear yard that might be otherwise mandated by the land use bylaw for that area, and you put it into a common collective amenity space. So I'm just going to try and find an image that would show here. So essentially, use the mouse, is that these units here, and again, they could be duplexes, fourplexes, stacked townhouses, something of that nature. Nothing that's terribly high. The developer's not contemplating sort of a high-rise a tower or anything of that nature. But that means that you can kind of combine some of those side and rear yards, still reach a fairly decent density for that parcel, and then come up with a common amenity space, which, for sake of argument, the developer has placed here, but we've had some discussion with them. Maybe it makes sense to put a small portion of it here, so it connects into the park space that then otherwise leads down to the pond. There are a variety of different options. That's certainly something that would come forward as part of a development permit application process, and very likely, even depending on the nature of the cluster housing, could come forward as its own direct control bylaw at some point in time, but that's the intent.
Okay, so for the clustered housing, do we have a certain percentage of the total land use that can be considered clustered housing?
Through the chair, to address the question of the Deputy Mayor, I'm just going to ask a question of clarification first. Do you mean under our current bylaw?
I think he's talking about what's being proposed here on this site. Sorry if I'm incorrect.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So, no, that hasn't been specifically contemplated here, but traditionally on a multifamily site, we've typically looked for something in the neighborhood of 20 to 40% of green space. Probably would be something in that nature here.
Very good, thank you.
Alderman Chapman.
Just more on that 40th Avenue, I'm sorry. So that 40th Avenue would be going back to Sharp Hill Way, back to the west. That's not extending out to the east to 292 right off the bat, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. I think what's contemplated is advancing 40th Ave right through continuously to Range Road 292 at the point of 25% build out of the Lanark Lake plan area. The section of roadway between the entry point that Stephen is indicating on the map right now and Sharp Hill Way would occur as early as 2017. So it would be a two-stage, staff are contemplating a two-stage operation with the second and ultimate stage advancing to Range Road 292 at the 25% build out.
25%, not the 100%, sort of like it showed in that one drawing that was in the light purple, which was 100%.
That's correct. The intention is the advancing 40th Ave through the Lanark Lake area directly to 292 would occur at the 25% build out stage.
That relieves some of my concerns. Thank you.
Sorry, if I could supplement the comment through the chair as well. I'd alluded to the widening of the northbound Highway 2 off-ramp. I would also offer, similar to how 8th Street functions today for west side traffic, we would also contemplate that commuters in this area would probably take advantage of exiting on the 566 interchange, traveling down 566 and reverse flowing back 292 back into this area as well. I'm certainly not suggesting that will happen with all commuters who live in this area, but it certainly offers a very viable transportation option to Yankee Valley Boulevard, depending on their particular preferences.
Thank you, Lauren. Sorry, Alderman Chapman.
I was just going to comment on that. Going into the east side to 566, you actually have better access to Stony Trail and Meaty Trail in behind Cross Iron. It's actually, yeah.
Any other comments before we open the public hearing? Yes, Alderman Burley.
Just a quick question, Stephen. With regards to the phasing, is there a concern with having the central park in the last phase? So people that have been there for, I don't know how long it takes to develop out to 7 phases, but might be there 3-4 years and not have a major playground or a park area available.
Through the chair, to address the question of Alderman Burley, I guess I'll answer that sort of in two-part. First is that the land use districting has been put in place for the school site, so that certainly can be brought online. Secondly, Rocky View Schools and some of the preliminary conversations they've had with us indicated that this is a priority site and they'd like to see it brought on. So it likely would be advanced ahead of 7, but what's being done is sort of contemplating that there's enough housing product being made there at that time the developer can do that. In light of the other spaces here, there would be park spaces brought online much earlier here, in this space here, as well as in this space here. So it wouldn't be that the residents would be deficient in park space in that time. There would be sort of 2 playground areas, as well as you have to remember that there's an additional school site with its playfields right here. So it's just literally down the road, and we anticipate that the school site likely would go forward earlier than phase 7, but that's what's being contemplated this time.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, I don't see any more lights on, so I'd like to open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the Lanark Stage 1 Neighborhood Structure Plan and all the associated bylaws. Please come forward and just give your name, and you can tell us who the company you represent or whatever your preference.
Good evening, Your Worship and honorable members of council. My name is Alan Boucher, and I'm here tonight representing Melcor Developments, along with my manager, Trevor Scholdice. We currently manage Melcor's active development in Kings Heights, in addition to our raw land assets, which include 143 acres in southwest Airdrie and 480 contiguous acres in southeast Airdrie, 160 of which compromises a subject application for Lanark Stage 1 before you tonight. I want to begin by thanking Stephen for his excellent presentation. Melcor would not be here tonight without his efforts to set process and timelines to resolve the issues that arose throughout the review of our application. It is evident from working with Stephen that he is principled around collaboration and is passionate about planning great communities. I believe this professionalism also extends to all city staff involved with this project. I'm going to keep my presentation at a high level, but if anyone has any detailed technical questions, I have my entire project team here to provide answers, led by my lead planner, Kathy Oberg with Brown & Associates. Please feel free to interrupt at any time. All right. So I just wanted to provide some context from Melcor's perspective. Planning for Lanark began back in 2013. With Kings Heights and Ravenswood nearing completion, it was time to start planning the next community to ensure there's a continuous supply of housing options in the southeast. Originally, Melcor was focused on neighborhood planning for the quarter section of land directly south of Ravenswood, where CASP approvals and servicing capacity was in place. And of course, that's this piece here. After discussions with administration, it was clear to us that more innovative design for new communities was expected moving forward. Considering this feedback, Melcor decided to step back and reevaluate this land holding comprehensively with our adjacent 320 acres of land in the annexation area. and this is the 2 core sections that were part of the 2012 annexation. Opportunities to master plan 480 acres of continuous greenfield land under the direction of one property owner and within a single municipality are rare. With that in mind, we hired an award-winning design firm out of Denver called Design Workshop to lead the conceptual design process. This firm is the Ferrari of the planning world with over 45 years experience in 30 different countries. With Trevor and I both coming from a planning background, we are very excited to be working with these guys. Our overall concept from Design Workshop was well received by administration. However, due to the timing of broader city utility strategies in the annexation area, it wasn't feasible to proceed with the community under one planning process and one new area structure plan. That's why Stage 1 is being proposed today under its own merits. While I understand there's a lot of interest and questions about Stage 2, specifically as it relates to the freshwater lake, we don't have all the answers right now. However, Melcor does have experience in building freshwater lake communities, including Arbor Lake in Calgary and the current development of Jensen Lakes in St. Albert. I personally look forward to working through these details with administration once Melcor gets permission to proceed with our Stage 2 area structure plan. However, rest assured that while Stage 1 is completely independent of Stage 2, from a servicing and approvals perspective, it has been thoughtfully planned to integrate into the comprehensive vision for the community as a whole. That vision is what I would like to touch on next. It's important for us to have a vision of what we'd like to achieve with Lanark to serve as a clear guide for implementation. With that in mind, Lanark is not so much about building a community, it's really about community building. Melcor envisions Lanark as an inclusive community that appeals to a wide range of demographics and lifestyles, a community that fosters a safe and healthy place for families and individuals to live and grow through all stages of life. We want to make Lanark the community of choice in Airdrie, and we'll set this community apart by creating a consistent neighborhood identity with a level of quality that exceeds our competition. This will be achieved by building high-quality recreational amenities and streetscapes, providing a variety of housing product with a selected group of builders who share our passion for high-quality architecture, building a strong sense of place in a community of brand that reinforces important community linkages, and fostering the creation of a homeowners association to champion the community identity after Melcor is gone. Now, while we are energized and excited by our vision for Lanark, we also understand the need to phase development in a manner that is sustainable and fiscally responsible on the municipal infrastructure system. With that in mind, we know that current traffic congestion is a paramount concern for residents and council alike. The 40th Avenue interchange is a key piece of the puzzle to providing servicing capacity for all the East Airdrie annexation lands. Expecting approval to add more traffic to the network in the absence of the interchange without coming to the table with solutions would be naive on our part. That's why throughout the process with administration, we've been focused on a solution-based approach to address Southeast Airdrie capacity issues in the interim that allow development to proceed until the ultimate solution can be in place. I believe it can be summarized through 2 critical points. Our first step was to support administration's application to amend the Kings Heights Community Plan to recognize the extension of 40th Avenue across the southern edge of the community. And this is in meeting the new TMP principles. That's the segment shown before you, in orange before you, that Mr. Stevens mentioned would be coming in 2017. Without this amendment...
Sorry to interrupt you, Alan.
Yeah.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Are you getting close to the end?
Yeah.
Or would someone else from the audience come forward and finish your presentation?
No,
Sure,
I'm
Trevor is here.
getting very close, sir.
Yeah, I apologize. I should have told everybody ahead of time. So anybody that's coming forward, you do have 5 minutes, and I'd like to keep you to that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I'm almost done here.
Yes.
So without this amendment, there would be no direct access to that future interchange for lands in the East Annexation area. The second piece is Melcor has agreed to front-end the construction of 40th Avenue from Lanark Stage 1 to Range Road 292 once we achieve 25% build-out in Lanark. And that's the segment in green. I've chatted with many residents in Kings Heights and Ravenswood throughout the course of this process, and I'm amazed at the support and the amount of people who would say they would use this access regularly. And as Mr. Stevens mentioned, this is certainly a relief valve in the same manner as 8th Street. So with that in mind, we look forward to continuing to work collaboratively with the city as a stakeholder with other landowners in the annexation area in support of the city's lobbying efforts to get this interchange built. There's lots of other great things I would love to say about Lanark, but time is short, and we're really excited to deliver this community. And to conclude, we really consider it an honor and a privilege to develop communities for Airdrie, current and future citizens. We value our long-standing business relationship with the city and stand behind our 90-year track record of high-quality community building in Western Canada. I really appreciate the added value administration has provided to this process to ensure that our plan meets city policy and council direction. Indeed, the final document before you tonight has come a long ways from our original submission over 1 year ago. So we look forward again to working in partnership to implement the plan before you tonight and to ensure we deliver a community that all citizens of Airdrie can be proud of. Thank you for your time and consideration, and if you have any technical questions, we're certainly happy to answer them.
Thanks, Alan. I don't see any lights on, but I'll probably carry the public hearing open so that you guys can, if there is a question from council staff is not able to answer, be able to call you forward. Is there anyone else who'd like to come and speak in favor of the proposed development? Lanark Stage 1 neighborhood structure plan with associated bylaws? Okay, for a third and final time, is there anyone who'd like to speak in favor of Lanark Stage 1 neighborhood structure plan and all associated bylaws? Okay, now I'd ask if there's anyone present who'd like to speak against Lanark Stage 1 structure plan, neighborhood structure plan and associated bylaws to please come forward. Okay, for a second time, if there's anyone present who'd like to speak against the proposed bylaw, Lanark Stage 1 neighborhood structure plan and all associated bylaws. And for a third and final time, if there's anyone present who would like to speak to the Lanark Stage 1 neighborhood structure plan and all associated bylaws. Okay, there being none, Sharon, I have a point of clarification. So we've had it in the past where staff were not able to answer a question, and with the proponents here, and there is a question, I'd like to keep it open so that we can ask them the question. Is that okay? Perfect. So I will turn it over to Stephen, and we'll open it up to council for Q&A and where they'd like to see this go. Thank you. Whenever you're ready. Sorry to put you on the spot, Stephen.
Yes, sorry. Mr. Mayor, I have no further comments in terms of presentation.
Okay, so
I would simply move to readings.
Okay.
But if you have debate and questions,
and we've already reviewed them, so yeah, no, that's perfect. So let's open it up to the council. I'll start off with Alderman Hunter, please.
No questions or real concerns. We did have some folks that didn't. We had a letter that we got about people saying don't do it because of concerns about traffic and schools. In this presentation, you've addressed both very adequately as city staff, and I commend not only Melcor, but their high regard for you and the entire planning department helping them to get to this. And it's nice. I wish we had some more stuff like this on the other side of the highway. So it's I really like it, and I look forward to supporting it.
Excellent. And just for, sorry, and I'll get right to you, Alderman Chapman. Mr. Stevens, there was a comment that Stephen made, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. You could build out all the phases, including the stuff in the development opportunities outside of this development, and still be not be at capacity with our current road situation. And that's always what I hear. I mean, I drive the city every day, and I'm 7 days a week. I'm at night. I'm in rush hour. I come in from Calgary, in and out of the city. And yes, we are definitely have volume of cars, but we are not at capacity. And that's what I want to clearly get out of administration today, that it will add some, but by this development being approved, we are not putting our roads at in jeopardy of being at capacity. And I guess that's my question. I'm sorry for lingering.
Mr. Mayor, that's exactly correct. And I'm sure Mr. Stevens can further on this, but essentially we're trying to be proactive here. We know that we have a certain degree of control of our own destiny with the 40th Avenue extension out to Range Road 292, which would then connect down to Métis Trail and to Stony Trail. That's a viable option. There's a lot of capacity on those roads. I've spoken with the transportation consultants and our own transportation consultants who review that to ensure that that is the case. So from my perspective, I see that as a viable solution. I welcome Mr. Stevens to add.
Your Worship and members of council, my only additional comments would be the best way to address transportation capacity in the community would be additional Highway 2 interchanges. Short of that, and short of, I guess, a complete moratorium on new development for reasons of transportation capacity, we believe that this offers the least impactful approach to growth and development, given where the development is situated, given that there's a number of transportation improvements directly within the city's control, and given that the developer has agreed to front end some of that necessary infrastructure. I think all of those things, if we look at our the transportation impact assessment, had quantified the capacity on roadways surrounding the development and found those to be within the environmental capacity constraints or guidelines associated with those roadways. It really was a large part of looking at what are some solutions to the transportation infrastructure and the Highway 2 connectivity, and we believe that this proposed plan offers some good solutions for that.
Thanks, Lauren. Alderman Chapman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair, with I guess, the assurance of that 40th Avenue build out to 292, it has eased a lot of my concerns, like I said. The one question I have for the Melcor group is that standalone building and that runway at the south end of that property. Before you rip it up, can I take a couple runs up and down that runway? I've got probably over 100 takeoffs and landings in a 1947 Aronca Champ off that runway, and I know that hangar very well and the equipment that's in there. So it's sort of one of those things. I'm going to be sorry to see it go, but we do have to move forward. And it was a great little runway that I spent a lot of hours on flying out of. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from council? No. Okay. Stephen, great presentation as usual. I do want to commend Brown and Associates, Melcor, and all associated professionals that pulled this together. It's very rarely that you get Tracy to smile about planning initiatives and some of the things that we look for into having variety, providing people a choice, having neighborhoods where you can have different multiple levels of income earners and a great place to call home. So I think this certainly phase one meets that criteria. I've seen 2 and 3. We're looking forward to visiting that in the not too distant future. But yeah, no, I think it's a very well thought out plan, and I am definitely going to be supporting what's been proposed. So with that, first of all, I'll close the public hearing since there are no questions for anyone else. And then we'll move on to 9.1A and ask Alderman Burley, please, to begin.
Thank you, Worship. Stephen will now present us with the options with regards to bylaw B25, 2015.
Thank you.
Through the Mayor, the Council has the options to enact bylaws B25, B45, B46, and B26, 2015. Council has the option to table those bylaws. Council has the option to defeat those bylaws.
My apologies, Stephen. Alderman Burley, please.
Then I'll make a motion for first reading of bylaw B25, 2015, being a bylaw to enact the Lanark Stage 1 Neighborhood Structure Plan.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Alderman Hunter, please.
Motion for second reading, NSP bylaw B25, 2015.
Thank you. All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Alderman Coulson, please.
Permission for third, Your Worship.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. And finally, Alderman Chapman, please.
Your Worship, move third reading bylaw B25, 2015, please.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor? It's unanimous. We are now at 9.1.B. Deputy Mayor Bellick.
Thank you, through the chair. And Stephen will give us the options of readings for bylaw number B45, 2015.
Through the mayor, council has the option to enact bylaw B 45, 2015. Council has the option to table bylaw B 45, 2015. Council has the option to defeat bylaw B 45, 2015.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Mayor Bellick, please.
All right, I'd like to make the motion to adopt bylaw number B45 2015 as being a bylaw to amend land use bylaw number B09 2005 by creating current control 44 district 44 district 44.
That was a mouthful. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Alderman Chapman, please.
Your worship, I'd like to move second reading bylaw B45 2015.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Alderman Coulson, please.
Permission for third, your worship.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Alderman Haig.
I'd like to move third reading, your worship.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And 9.1.c. Alderman Hunter, please.
Make a motion for first reading of bylaw B46 2015 being a bylaw to amend land use bylaw 9 2015 creating direct control 45 district DC 45.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Alderman Coulson, please.
Second reading, your worship, of bylaw B46 2015 to amend land use bylaw number B9 2015.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Bellick.
And permission for third.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. And finally, Alderman Burley, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Third and final reading of bylaw B46 2015.
All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Thank you. And finally, 9.1.d. Alderman Coulson, please.
Thank you, your worship. Are we going to, no, okay, all right.
Sorry, I don't think we need to provide the options. We're pretty clear on how we're
Okay.
moving forward and proceeding. Thank you.
Motion to move first reading of bylaw B26 2015 to amend the land use bylaw B09 2015 to rezone a total of 27.42 hectares from urban holding and ranch and farm district to residential single dwelling small lot district, residential single dwelling small lot lane district, and residential two dwelling district R2, public service district P1, direct control 44 district, and direct control 45 district.
Excellent. Thank you, Alderman Coulson. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Alderman Hunter, please.
Second reading of all that stuff.
Thank you. All those in favor, please. It's unanimous. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Bellick.
And third reading of, like Alderman Hunter says, all that stuff.
Okay. Thank you for that. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Permission
This
for
is
third.
permission. Sorry.
Sorry, do you want to repeat that just so Sharon captured it?
Permission for third reading, please, of what's laid out in front of us.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. And finally, Alderman Haig, please.
Thank you, Worship. I would move third reading, including Alderman Chapman's runway.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Lauren. Moving on to item 10, financial position. We have no items at this time. Business arising, 11.1. Does anybody require a break before we? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll move on with 11.1, and that'll be Alderman Chapman for introductions. Meeting back to order. We are now on 11.1, and I will ask for Alderman Chapman for introductions, please.
Sorry, Your Worship. If we invite Pelkey and Larry up to talk to us about some tax arrears, some properties. They're already there. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council.
Council has been asked tonight to establish reserve bid prices for tax arrears properties in advance of a public auction and any conditions that may apply to that sale. The city has 2 properties in a tax arrears position that will be offered for sale on the administration proposed date of November 30th, 2015 at 1:30 p.m. in council chambers here in City Hall through a public auction. The owners of the properties are aware of their tax arrears situation and have been notified of the public auction process as per the MGA. The owners have not entered into any formal tax payment agreement with the city as of 4:30 p.m. today. And the departments will continue to make attempts to collect the taxes up to and including the date of the public auction. Council has been required to establish reserve bid prices and payment terms, in this case cash or certified check, for the tax arrears properties. The reserve bid prices, which are as close as reasonably possible to the market value as assessed by our city assessor, are now being proposed to Council. Unit 1, 99 East Lake Crescent Northeast, has a reserve bid price of $165,000. 17649 Main Street Northwest has a reserve bid price of $32,000. An assessment of each of these properties are attached to your agenda report tonight. Council at this time could choose to support the public auction date of November 30th, as well as the reserve bid prices as provided by the city assessor. Council could also choose not to support the proposed public auction date of November 30th, or not support the reserve bid prices, and recommend that staff return to Council with an alternate date and or revised reserve bid prices. An advertisement has appeared in the Alberta Gazette on the September 30th, and another advertisement will be in the local City View newspaper on November 13th, as per the MGA regulations. Staff is recommending at this time that City Council approves the reserve bid prices for the properties for sale at the public auction to be held on November 30th for Unit 1, 99 East Lake Crescent Northeast at $165,000, 17649 Main Street Northwest for $32,000. Staff is also recommending auction purchases to be paid in cash or certified check at the time of sale, and a recommendation to be made of full disclosure of Unit 199 East Lake Crescent Northeast, so to seek assistance of any qualified person to review all documents that are available.
Alderman Colson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just looking at the Main Street address. Now, isn't that the trailer court?
Yes, it is.
I thought the trailer court was a rented, like it was owned by the entire court was owned by an owner, but then each individual unit was rented out.
Yes, that's the case, but they still owe us taxes on that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was that answer about? That I had that same question, but I didn't hear your answer, Pelkey. I'm sorry.
Through the chair, it's a mobile home on the main street, and even though it's a rental property, they still owe us taxes on that.
The owner of the mobile home owes on the taxes on that property.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the owner of the property pays taxes as well as each individual mobile home.
Sir, if we
On
could
that
just
property.
counsel direct it through the chair.
Sorry.
We're going off on a free-for-all here. Pelkey, you were clear. You said that it's a rental property. It's currently rented, correct? The trailer is currently rented? It's a rental property?
Larry will have more information.
Sorry, thank you.
Through your worship and to council, the trailer park is owned by an individual. The mobile homes are also owned by individuals who pay a lot rent. So they are taxed as well individually.
Okay, thank you. So we had Alderman Chapman and Alderman Hunter next, please.
Through the chair, so just.
Sorry, Alderman, are you done?
No,
You
I've
done your
got another
questions?
question, but Alderman Hunter, please
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay.
Just through the chair, it's a 1972 on the mobile home, and it's got a value of 30,000, give or take 32,000. What happens if it doesn't make reserve bid?
Again, it doesn't necessarily sell at that point through your worship. It remains in that status. We have some choices we could make, I guess, but we would normally just bring it on again and keep it in arrears and move it forward again.
And so if it didn't sell at that reserve price, would it go back on, would it go back to auction at a lower reserve price? What,
In another year.
Another year.
with an additional tax outstanding? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Chapman.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, regarding Unit 1 at 99 East Lake Crescent, that appraised value, did that take into account the possibility of any land contamination?
Through your worship and to council, we did certainly consider that element in the valuation. I think what we did to establish the bid price there is we had to look at some serious situations. Like, first off, the property's been abandoned for a number of years. That in itself creates a stigma. There is contamination known on the site. There is a lot of reports that are attached here, which Palki mentioned earlier, that are part of the due diligence process. We also have non-conformance electrical issues that aren't to code, which would require the unit to be brought back to basically shell only. So those are all factors that play into reducing its market value. We also spoke to our colleagues in Calgary, and they would use, in a similar circumstance, up to a 30% reduction, which is what we did apply in this case because of the multiple issues.
So for anybody that wanted to bid on that property, they would be able to have a look at those documents, so on and so forth. There's
Full disclosure.
full
Yeah, through
disclosure.
your worship,
Absolutely.
all documents that we have in our possession are available for scrutiny, yes.
Perfect, thank you. And just one more question on that. I'm still trying to figure out this 649 Main Street. So that bid is only on the structure, correct? It's not on the land it's sitting on?
Yeah, through the worship, it is on the structure, yes.
So you're not, you wouldn't be purchasing the land. At that point, you'd either have to pull that trailer off there or make a rental agreement with the landowner?
Again, through your worship, I believe those lots are owned by one individual, the trailer park owner, and then rented or leased to individual owners of units to occupy that space. So whatever arrears may or may not occur, we're dealing with the city tax situation here.
That's still confusing me. So we're collecting property tax from the landowner who owns all the lots, correct?
Off the top of my head, we are collecting property tax from the individual mobile homeowners.
How can they, I don't understand how they can pay a tax on something they don't own. I don't understand that.
Again,
Sorry, Mr. Schultz, please.
Through your worship, I believe the landowner of the mobile home site property is taxed. In addition to that, but he does not own the structures, the mobile homes.
Understandable, yeah.
And so they are taxed on the structure itself, is what I'm hearing.
through your worship, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your
Please.
Worship. So as far as the mobile homes themselves go, what's preventing them from moving them off that property? Like, how do you maintain ownership of those mobile homes?
Through your worship, that is a good question. That is how we have to deal with it. There's always that possibility if that were, at
I guess
this
if they
point,
had
the
the
issue before
10,000.
us is really about the taxation on that particular unit that we're discussing. You can move these units off of, but I suspect that not knowing the exact situation of the owner of the mobile home park, I don't really want to speak on behalf of what their interests are, but they would not normally allow something, I suppose, to be moved off if they owed money on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Alderman Burley, please.
Thank you, Worship. I was approached by some of the other bay owners in the one, number 1 East, or 99 East Lake Crescent. They have a caveat on that owner there because of paving and et cetera. Do we know if there's any other encumbrances on that property other than the city tax arrears?
No, not that we know of, no.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hunter.
Through the chair, I guess the issue before us is reserve bid on the property. I can tell you that the mortgage is in default on that property. In speaking with the owners of the property, there's been no action to go
Sorry,
after.
just to clarify, which property are you speaking to?
Number one
Thank
on
you.
East Lake. So there's been no action to go after the default on the mortgage in any way, shape, or form. So I guess my big concern is, I get all that piece. I guess my big concern is, after having reviewed the engineering reports at the level of contamination, as to why someone, whether it be City of Airdrie or Alberta Environment, hasn't insisted. In Alberta, the law says the polluter pays. So the people that put the gasoline on that site, theoretically, and so the people that carried the mortgage on it have the funds and the wherewithal to do it, and I'm not sure why we haven't at this point gone and first got it cleaned up. And but that's not the issue before us. But again, that really concerns me. This has come up a couple of years ago, and
So I'm in agreement with you, and I guess the question is, so when I talked to this another neighboring municipality where they're dealing with the same issue, where there was a polluter from 30 years ago that have contaminated, the federal government, I understand, are the only people that can actually go after the polluter and get some form of restitution. And that was my question to you guys. Can we not proceed with that first to see if there is an option to do that through the municipality, through the federal government, before we decide to proceed? Because I mean, the likelihood of selling the property based on what I understand the costs of reclamation are, I don't see who would even step up to make a bid, but I don't know. I'm not in that business, so. But I'd certainly be interested to hear if you know of the program, or who would we approach to go forward. Thank you. Lucy, I guess you're going to speak to this? Okay, thank you.
I'll provide just a little bit of background through the chair. And there's been we've been many departments that have been working through this situation for the last couple of years. So we've tried, as a municipality, I guess I'll say up front, that we've tried to do whatever we could do within our responsibilities and the powers that we have as a municipality to get any situation rectified, or obviously we were very conscious as well of the environmental concerns around contamination. So over the last couple of years, and the property has quite the history, we've been in contact with Alberta Environment over what's happened there. We have actually moved forward with assisting and drawing funds from Alberta Environment in order to get some of the cleanup done. We have taken the initiative to commission reports in order to test and retest over the course of the last 2.5 years in order to better understand what it is that we're dealing with there. So I guess that, and bringing us to today, our process as a municipality is, number one, we have to ensure that we do our due diligence over ensuring that we're able to collect our back taxes, right? That is our responsibility to our citizens. And the process is very strict and dictated through the MGA of how we move through that. So that's where we are with the process currently. Putting it out on the market, we are, as an auction, we want to ensure that we're able to give all of the information that we have on this particular property out to any potential buyer. And we'll continue to work with them in the capacity that we can as a municipality to try to rectify the situation. But we've been in contact. It's Alberta Environment that deals with those issues in this province, and we will do what we can in order to ensure that we provide information to them, they provide information to us, and we'll assist any condominium company, any owners or any potential buyers that may want to come forward and purchase this property.
Sorry, Lucy, so we didn't talk to the federal government, correct? The federal government was part, and there's the option to not support the auction date of November 30th. So what are our powers of council? So we're following the MGA, and it's strict as well as it relates to capturing, but this council has the option to not support the auction, correct? Just so I'm clear on that.
If I may, Your Worship.
Please, thank you.
So just two pieces. The first piece I think that we need to remember is that's a key piece that we need to remember. In terms of the auction, really don't have the ability to not move forward with the auction. You do have the ability to determine the auction date. And so you could there is some flexibility in when that auction is held.
6 months from now, a year from now? What's the time frame?
The auction has to be completed before December 31st, 2015.
2015?
Yeah.
Thank you, Palki. Okay, Alderman Hunter's light was on. Thank you.
Through the chair, and again, so after reviewing the engineering reports, all the funds that were available through Alberta Environment were exhausted to the tune of $500,000 on a cleanup on the property. My understanding in reviewing the engineering reports was it's about 40% cleaned up. As a municipality, we need to move forward to auctioning it. I think what we're more than likely going to find is because of all of those things surrounding it, it more than likely isn't going to meet reserve bid, and we're going to have to decide what the next step will be. We'll leave it to the market forces. There are some people out there that may want to take a risk on it, but again, it's it's a mess, and if it doesn't, I would certainly be coming back and asking for direction on what we are going to do about it, because it's gasoline, it's volatile, and it's not a good thing to be leaving sitting for indefinitely.
Okay. Alderman Chapman, please.
Just another question. On Unit 199 East Lake Crescent, how many years is that in arrears? How many, that $119,000 in tax arrears, how many years is that?
Since 2007.
2007. And 649 Main Street?
Since 2014.
2014.
So it should have gone to auction last year.
So that's only in arrears 1 year?
No, I mean, it's been 4 years before that, so it should have gone to auction last year, but it's going.
It should have gone to auction last year. Okay. And if the reserve bid was met on that Unit 1 at 165, the city is capturing 119,000, correct? For the the rest of the arrears go to the bank that holds the mortgage on, or what is?
The 119 is as of end of last year, does not take into consideration the 2015 amounts. So if they were to pay 119,900 today, then they get off the auction list.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, if it was met at $165,000, how much would we capture of that as a city?
Right. So after this has been taken, we can also take some of the administration costs of the auction off it, and then the rest can go back to.
Goes back to the owner. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to add something, Larry?
Yeah.
So just a question, Pelkey. You said that something that the smaller property should have gone to auction last year?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a different time frame for commercial buildings versus residential buildings?
No.
Because you said that the other one was 2007. It started. So I'm just I'm getting back to the time frame again. So why would one have to be, should have been done from 4 years ago last year? And I apologize for the questions. This has never come before council, so you have to bear with us.
Right, no problem. So for the East Lake Crescent, the public auction kept postponing each year, and this year we've kind of come to a date and we want to settle it.
Okay.
Because the contamination issues were not resolved, so.
But not on the Main Street property.
No.
That has nothing to do with the contamination.
Oh, no.
That's what I was referencing. So, and further to that, $800. So you've talked to the owner and they're not willing to. I mean, why would you give up an asset for? I'm just mystified as to why they wouldn't pay the $800 and they'd be prepared to give up their asset.
They haven't responded to any of our letters or any of our phone calls.
So have we contacted them personally?
Yes.
And they've answered the phone and.
They have not. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Alderman Colson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the trailer on Main Street is being rented. It's not occupied by the owner. No. Yes. So have the renters been contacted?
It's occupied by the owner.
Oh, it's occupied by the
Yes.
owner.
And
Okay.
it's in an estate condition at the moment.
Sorry?
It's in an estate condition. So the owner has died.
Oh,
And it's
I
in-
see.
Yeah.
So do we know, so is the estate settled then? Do you know if the estate's settled?
Can I add, please?
Lucy, absolutely, go ahead.
If I can, through the chair, just, there's usually quite a bit of detail around each one of these stories, and I guess what I would like to say from an administrative perspective, our taxation staff goes through great lengths in order to try to ensure that properties do not end up in this particular situation and before you, and looking very seriously as they will go through an auction process. So we do everything and anything in order to try to collect the funds, the property taxes that are outstanding on these properties, so that people do not lose their homes. That is the last thing that, as a municipality, that we want to do. We do not want to take over these properties. We just want to make sure that the taxes get paid. So for each one of these two particular properties that are here before you today, there are long stories behind them, and some of those I would say that maybe should be discussed in camera as opposed to in a public forum. And if that's the wish of council, we definitely can do that if you'd like to, but I just caution on some of the pieces. Some of it moves into personal information, and I don't think we really should speak about it.
I think, so from the estate perspective and the gentleman or person who's passed away, council just wants to be assured that if you haven't talked to somebody that is in the estate, for whatever reason, are we communicating with the right people? I don't, because if it was me and I was the son or whomever might be a recipient be the beneficiary, to lose out on the asset for $800 and not know about it, I guess that's my concern. If we've done our due diligence, have we actually got a hold of the people we need to talk to? Because I can't imagine anybody who's sitting on a potential asset that wouldn't pay the $800, or anybody else that may be waiting. But anyway.
As of 2015, as of today, we've contacted them 7 times.
You've actually spoken to the...
Not spoken.
No,
Letters
you've
have
just
been
left messages or written a letter to them?
Yes.
Right. So we're
7
certain
times.
that it's the right address and...
Yes, it is.
Okay. Alderman Burley, please.
Just a quick comment, Your Worship. The person isn't missing out on the asset. Once the auction is held, they'll get the money paid to them after the city gets their $800. So they'll get the value of the asset.
Sorry, that's correct. Absolutely. Any other comments? Do we need to move in camera? I don't think so, but I'll defer to my colleagues.
Well, I guess aside from the trailer park through the chair, I guess my concern would be on the one that's been outstanding since 2007. That's significant that it has come before council. The individual asked to be forgiven taxes at some point. That'd be a number of years ago. It came up. So how we're 8 years in and still trying to put something to an auction, I'm a little confused about that piece. I've looked at all the aspects, tried to help the owner, couldn't. In my mind, the important thing first is we get our taxes, and secondly, that there is an organization out there carrying a mortgage on it that has the assets to clean it up. And again, that would go into the realm of maybe discussing that in camera, because that information can't be disclosed.
Thank you. I think we're going to be moving forward. So, Alderman Chapman, please.
Well, Your Worship, I guess I will approve the recommendation for the reserve bids. Reserve bid of 199 East Lake Crescent at $165,000 and 17649 Main Street at $32,000. Along with the rest of it, I just want to make sure that people are aware it is a buyer beware situation, that make sure due diligence is done on both properties before you are successful with a bid.
Okay, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to agenda reports, correspondence, 13.1, Alderman Colson with regard to CRP Board of Directors Council update.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sharon, will you be doing our, pardon? Yeah, Sharon.
Worship members of council, you have two pieces of correspondence this evening. This first is your regular update from the CRP Board of Directors, and the second piece is just you're being provided with information on the upcoming 2017 Alberta 55 Plus Games.
Okay, Alderman Coulson.
All right. At this time, I have the nod from Alderman Haig to make the motion to accept both for information, Your Worship.
Got the nod. Wow, I didn't realize you had that kind of power. All those in favor? Thank you. Yes, subtlety. Thank you. We're on board member reports, and I'll start with Alderman Chapman, please.
Nothing this evening, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Member Bellick.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Alderman Hunter.
Yeah, just for people that didn't attend or didn't know, some members of council come out and did our fourth annual Memorial Crosses ceremony on Veterans Boulevard, and very well attended, very poignant affair that certainly honors not only those that have gone before us, but those that are actively serving now, and some of the younger veterans in our community. So that was a really awesome thing, and I must say thank you to our newly elected MP, Blake Richards, for supplying and pay your respects to the crosses on Veterans Boulevard.
Yeah, and if I could add, great presence from RCMP and ME and Public Works, and they were doing their job, and they kept all of us safe on the ride. And if you could pass it on, Lauren, to your team, and just let them know how much we appreciate that. Alderman Haig. Thank you. Alderman Burley.
Just a couple of things, Your Worship. One was I attended the land use open house of the draft bylaw on Thursday night. I just want to commend staff for an incredible job. They did an amazing job. They answered the citizens' questions, and the residents and everybody seemed at the end was happy with the result. So the staff did, and Will did the presentation. He did a great job.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I saw it was during the day, and it was well attended as well, both sessions. Alderman Coulson.
Thank you, Worship. Had the opportunity to attend the grand opening of our new reservoir today, which was just absolutely an incredible facility inside and out. When we got there, they shut off the pumps that were pumping in at over 250 liters per second of water coming in from our pipeline, which was it was a great sight to see. So.
Yeah, we'll want a detailed explicit of how it all comes together and works too, because it was fairly complicated during the presentation, that's for sure. Pray for rain, yeah, that's funny. I just want to revisit something we've talked about before, but we're probably one of the last jurisdictions that still use the word alderman in the title, and I have a difficult time calling Alderman Coulson an alderman. She's a councillor in my mind, and I think it's time that Airdrie move in the same direction as majority of municipalities across Canada, and we reference ourselves either as councillors as an option, but I'd like to see us. We had this conversation, I think, during the previous council year, and I believe the motion was defeated, but some time's gone by, so I'd like to make a motion that we revisit that opportunity and ask Sharon to come forward with some possible options for council's consideration. That's my motion. All those in favor? Sorry, you can, Alderman Burley. Yes.
You want recommendations back, not necessarily a change at this time.
Absolutely not. No, I'm asking for bring possible options for council, or we keep it the status quo. But think we'd like to revisit it, or I would like to revisit it. So, any other questions on my motion? Yeah, there's a number of replies to that. But all those in favor? All those opposed? One opposed. The motion's carried. Thank you. Sharon, you're clear on the motion? Thank you so much. With that, we'll ask Mr. Schultz to provide some council follow-up. Any questions for Mr. Schultz? All right, the meeting's adjourned. Oh, sorry, light's going on. Okay, we may have a question. It's minor? All right, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Carrie, can I get clarification on this presentation? Is it continuing on so we can let our viewers know that they'll be here for this presentation or no? No, we're off. We're going to be off the air? Okay, thank you.